Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful day today interacting. For those of you that did already start interacting, this evening we have our first fireside chat, and it's about the journey of finding a job and living abroad. And with us today, we're going to have Pierpaolo Maniglio, the Global Director of Strategic Growth for Reuters, Thomson Reuters, and Mark Richards, who is the Senior Systems Development Engineer of Amazon. So let's bring them up.
Hello,
Hi, gentlemen.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Pretty well.
Good. So can you each tell our viewers a little bit about yourselves? Pierpaolo, you can go first since you're at the top.
Sure, I'll go first. So, hi, everyone. First of all, Pierpaolo here. I'm a 34 years old Italian who's living abroad for the last more than 10 years now. I am in the US. I've been based in New York on and off since 2015 now. I personally come from an economics and marketing background. I've always been worked for somehow or for big US consumer companies like Coca-Cola first or Kellogg's. Across different roles, ranging from brand management to events, digital strategy, and social media as well, which is what I specialize right before moving to the media and publishing industry, where I've been working since 2015. I am at Reuters News, as Melissa was saying before. And that's when I moved to New York. Honestly, I've been moving a lot, for the last 10 years. I'm sure, I'm gonna have a chance to tell you more about this crazy journey. But I've been in New York since 2015. I have covered different roles within this company. My last one is I'm leading the strategic partnerships team. The title is what Melissa was mentioning before. So director of strategic growth, which can mean all or nothing, I would say. In a nutshell, I pretty much manage all the relationships with big tech companies for content distribution and content monetization. So think about the YouTube strategy, the Twitter strategy, Apple News, as well as Microsoft, and anything Twitter as well. So really, our team is the connection between the editorial side of the business and the more commercial one. I think that's where I am at the moment.
Pierpaolo forgot to mention that he has the digital marketing genius gene that all his classmates in university were begging for.
I'll tell you more. We can talk about that. Me and Melissa actually studied together. I finished my studies at FIU in Florida. That was my very first time in the US.
Okay, we'll get into it. Let's bring up Mark and have Mark introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Richards. As Melissa mentioned, I'm a senior system development engineer at Amazon, and specifically I work with AWS, which is Amazon's cloud computing division. And I work on the AWS benchmarking team. And what our team's role is we work to make sure that our services are faster than other competitors, right? So we do studies of our internal services. We're an internal group that studies our internal services, compares them to other groups, other cloud providers, and basically presents reports to senior management saying, okay, this is where we're falling down, this is where we need to do better, presents our recommendations, and that kind of kicks off a discussion about what the service teams do to improve our performance. And we try and help identify specific issues and raise issues and things like that. So I'm based in Toronto now. I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica. I've only been in Toronto for a few months now. I moved here in July, so I'm pretty brand new. But yeah, it's been going pretty well so far. I really enjoy the work, and I'm happy to share some of the things I've learned in the process of moving from Jamaica to Toronto, and doing that with a large global company.
Awesome. I cannot wait to get into all of that. So, we know where you guys are now, right? Pierpaolo was from Italy originally, and you're now in New York, and Mark from Kingston, Jamaica, now in Toronto, Canada. So tell me a little bit about your path to finding the job abroad. Did it find you, or did you find it? Mark?
Sure, I'll go. So in my case, I guess it kind of found me, but so previously for the last 9 years, I've been doing online consulting for cloud computing, right? So I was working with AWS, I was working on the platform, but I was just working for myself, right? From Jamaica. So I've been doing remote work, doing online work, way before it became cool, when COVID came around, right? So, and I was using one of the freelancing platforms to do that. I was using Upwork, and it was going pretty well. I had clients from all over the world. I'd work with clients from Germany, Israel, the US, things like that. And I got a few very kind of long-term clients, clients that were doing stuff in e-commerce. I was doing some work with the PGA. And so that was going pretty well. But I also wanted to kind of, start stepping up my game, right? So I had a plan to essentially put out a few blog posts about, some interesting things that I was working on or some ideas that I had, and use that to raise my profile. And, I was just thinking about raising my rates, right? I wasn't really planning to go and work for a big company. I was pretty happy working for myself, but I was like, all right, I just want to increase my rates, increase my profile. So that was a plan. But the project that I actually started working on just kind of ballooned into a much bigger thing than I had initially planned. And it ended up being, and it also coincided with the beginning of the pandemic, right? So I basically had more time on my hands than I expected. And I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of a super low-level performance engineering research project, essentially. And I spent more than a year working on that, and then several months writing up a super long blog post about it.
On your own?
On my own, just on my own. And I posted it on Hacker News. So I published a blog. I posted it on Hacker News, which is a techie website that a lot of people who are super into tech go to, and a lot of people working at these big companies browse on a daily basis. And it did really well. It was on the front page of Hacker News for about a day. It was the #1 post for a good part of the day. So it was unexpected for it to do so well. I think the post in the first week got 100,000 visits or something.
Wow.
So it definitely put me out there, beyond my expectations. And people basically started reaching out. So people from different tech companies DM'd me on Twitter or contacted me through the website. There were a lot of people from blockchain and that type of stuff that were reaching out as well, because this was also back when blockchain was at its heights. But eventually somebody from Amazon reached out, and I started having a discussion with them. It turned out that the post in that department I didn't think was quite the right fit, but I found something else. And somebody else who was also from Amazon referred me for that post, and then I still had to go through the process. I still went through a very intensive interview process. I still had to do a whole lot of preparation, a whole lot of studying. I felt like I was back in school. So it wasn't like I just skipped to the front of the line, right? I still had to do 7 different interviews, live coding, system design, the whole 9 yards. But I got the job eventually, and we went through a process to get me to move to Canada, and here I am now. So
when they contacted you, did they know that you were Jamaican, living in Jamaica? Or did they just, I don't know, did they assume that you were in the US or?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it was definitely on my website that I was based in Jamaica. So I think they knew, right? I think, or if they didn't know right away, I made it clear pretty quickly, right? So it was pretty clear in the discussions early on that this was going to be and I was actually Trying to get them to let me to continue working from Jamaica initially. Like,
I
we
remember.
tried to go down that path. Obviously that didn't work out. But yeah, so they knew very early on that I was based in Jamaica. So it wasn't like a surprise or anything like that.
Okay, got it. So, and you would say, when you say early on, would you say from the first conversation, or did you like ease it into?
No, I'd say, because I spoke to a few different people. There was like 2 different roles, but like it came up in the conversation right away.
Okay.
It was, and like I said, it was there on the blog post in the website. Everything was kind of upfront, so they were aware, but they were interested.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're able to tell that story, because one thing I always tell some of the candidates that contact me is, if you are looking to move internationally, you need to have a presence that's above everybody else that's local. And one way of doing that is presenting your work, becoming known for what you do. And you did exactly that. So I'm glad to hear it. Pierpaolo, let's hear what's your story.
Sure. I think honestly, it's kind of like a similar experience, or like similar experiences, all my career, than what Mark was mentioning. So I think it's a little bit of both. Did I find my job, or did my job find myself? I think it needs to be a match sometimes, and it needs to work, both ways. So I would say it's never like a linear path. It's never like a straight line. So me personally, I think, as long as you have clear in mind your long-term objective, or at least like, one key objective you have for your next role, for your next adventure, whether it's like moving to like a specific city, whether it's like, entering like a new job market, or changing industry, or shifting your career to something else, or just getting like a specific role in a specific company. I think as long as you have that in mind, and you start working for that, like, step by step, day by day, like little steps at a time, I think you're going to get closer and closer and closer to find it, or like let the right job find you. So you're like, helping the job to find you, I would say. And I have honestly plenty of examples in my, starting from the university example that we were mentioning before. I think, that was like honestly, for me and for my best friend at that time, our first time overseas, a life-changing experience. If we did not take that opportunity, I would not be here now, for sure. I would have been, somewhere else. So
tell the listeners, the viewers, about that. How did you go over to the US to do school? Because it was a dual program, correct?
That's right. We were part of like a double degree program with my Italian university. So there was this chance, but they were building this chance. It took like 2 years to open this program, and we were aware of that during our undergraduate degree, and we started preparing for that. Right, me and my best friend, we started studying. We started like gathering information. We started we tried to understand. What would have been to move to the US, or what would have been to change life completely. So honestly, it took some time. It's nothing like it happened overnight, and we applied for that and we got it. I think something that always blows my mind is that we were the only 2 people that were actually accepted into this first double degree program. But I would say maybe like Melissa or Mark, like, guess how many people applied for that opportunity in my school. Just,
I mean, it's Italy, so I'm thinking hundreds.
It was 2 people, actually. It was
just to tell you, and I get so many calls from Italy all the time.
It's insane. I mean, that program was limited to our own marketing course.
Wow.
But there were like hundreds of students during that year, and we all knew that was going to happen. But the thing is that such a great opportunity, like for the very first time, like an international partnership with our uni and like a US institution, no one really took that chance, or no one really was able or dare to dream about finishing their studies there. So we were the only 2 who applied, and we got a scholarship. We went there, and it was still hard to to prove yourself and to get accepted, to start your new life over there. But if you prepare for something, if you know what you want, or if you know what you want to become, I think you're gonna connect the pieces at some point.
Absolutely, preparation is key.
Let me throw something else in there, Melissa, as well, because I don't want to make it sound like I woke up one day, wrote a blog post, and
No,
then
of
got
course
this
not.
job.
I took you 1 year to write the thing.
So, separate apart from the fact that it took me like a year working on this project, right? Just with nobody paying me to do it. I'd been working in this field, specifically on AWS for the last 9 years, and that was built up from me starting to freelance on Upwork, getting my first clients overseas, working for fairly small amounts initially while I kind of proved myself and built my reputation over time, right? So it was a process of kind of like building my reputation on that platform, getting better and better clients, knowing exactly the right clients to pick, and kind of like learning as I went along, and really becoming an expert in the field as I moved through that process, and working with lots of different people internationally. And then we got to the blog posts and the research project and all of that stuff. But it wasn't like a overnight thing at all.
So talk a little bit about Upwork, because I generally I advise some of the candidates that even though we now have this platform where we're connecting them to the companies, they still have to have some amount of experience and show that they've done good work. And one way of doing that is working remotely, just as a transition. And I've always, Upwork is one of the sites that I would say to use as a transition while you're doing the search on Pocmi, of course. So
Exactly.
talk to us a little bit about Upwork.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. It's a very good way to kind of slowly get started and get exposure and build a reputation, right? So you can start doing small, very kind of like constrained projects that only take you a few hours. It doesn't have to be a huge investment. You don't have to go in there and try and build, somebody wants the next Uber and you have to build that from scratch, right? What I like about Upwork is that it allows you to kind of build your skills, build your reputation, and build your connection with clients over time without necessarily, just kind of diving in and like taking on a huge job, because there's always risk on both sides, right? With Upwork, you have a lot of people on there who are just trying to get people to build this huge thing for little and nothing, right? One of the key things I learned with Upwork is how to choose my own clients and how to identify the right types of clients to work with. One of the important things for me was working with clients who were, as you go along, you can become more picky. But as I went along, one of the important things was working with clients who I found to be technical and who understood and I could communicate with very easily, right? That really worked well for me because it reduced the amount of kind of like overhead from communication and stuff like that. And yeah, it just allowed, it's a super good opportunity to kind of get in there, get experience, get feedback, get ratings, and work on your communication. I find that for a lot of people, that's where the problem lies, like kind of developing the skills to interact and to kind of get more information and things like that. So, but I don't want to make it sound like it's this magical place where you just go on and great things happen. You have to put in a lot of work. You have to apply for a lot of openings. When you're just starting out, you have to work for fairly small amounts. I don't want to make it sound like people should go on there and work for nothing, right? But I think you kind of develop your skills over time and your reputation, and you increase prices as you move along. But it's a very good entry point, and it worked really well for me. But you have to be, the thing that will differentiate you on Upwork and on platforms like that is not just your technical skills, it's your soft skills, it's your communication skills, it's your being disciplined and telling them when things go wrong and being on time. And that is what will differentiate you from everybody.
Which is extremely important if you're being hired internationally. So
exactly.
People want to know that from before, so that's good.
Yeah, so in addition to developing your reputation, you also gives people a chance who might not have, like, remote work is a shift, right? Like, not everybody is immediately ready for it, and they might need some adjustment. So it's a good way to kind of like start practicing that process. So yeah.
It's also a good way for people who can't necessarily afford the move yet, to just keep working and get things, have things in their back pocket when they do connect with the employers on Pocmi.
Absolutely.
Pierpaolo, you had something?
It's also easier. I mean, if you already started in that job or in that industry, so you know the people, you have seen people like in real life. Yeah, like the adjustment is so much, natural to switch to the remote job. But if you're starting right now, you're joining like a new company, a new role, people you have never interacted before, just doing online, it can be challenging. So, and back to your point, Mark, I think that there are some things that no one's gonna teach you. No one's gonna tell you how to do taxes in your life. No one's gonna tell you how to write a contract. No one's going to tell you how to look for a job, which honestly is the toughest job on the planet. I think, looking for a job is more sweaty and like, and the most anxious process you will ever.
Well, technically, we tell you how to do it on Pocmi.
and honestly, I wish, we had a platform like that or like a process like that in place. We had, Melissa, remember, like we had to learn anything, on our skin. We had to connect people. We had to find the right contacts. We had to trust people, out of the blue, and you take your chances as well. So, and you never know. Like me personally, I always tell that. I'm speaking about my personal journey here. So mostly, expat to the US. At some point, like all of us are gonna become like some sort of like immigration lawyer. And
exactly,
no idea about all the kinds of visas you could possibly make up for.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's actually had a conversation with another candidate just last week, and that was one of the things I mentioned to them. I said, sometimes it's not that the companies are not able to sponsor the visas or the work permits. It's that they think it's a lot more difficult than it is at times. And sometimes if you go to them with the information that they need, then it makes the process so much easier.
Make your life easier. It's going to help you as well, for sure.
Exactly.
And like big companies, have their in-house, immigration, teams. It might help you, but not
even then. Even then, Mark can tell you. Even then, it's rough.
If you lose like mid-tier or like startups or like smaller companies, they absolutely have no idea how to hire someone internationally. So you have to put them in the right
exactly
condition to hire you, I would say. So that would help, yeah.
Definitely. So let's say we're now at the point where we have all the experience and we're a top-notch candidate. What are some of the pointers that you have in terms of the key things to pay close attention to during the immigration and moving process? Anybody? So go first.
Okay, I'll go. Well, to touch on what you mentioned earlier, Melissa, even the big companies who have all the immigration lawyers and things like that, one thing I'd say you need to make sure you keep an eye out for is things falling between the cracks. Because when you have these large companies, you might have a hiring manager who's hired tons of people, but they haven't necessarily had a ton of international people. And they do have, contact with the immigration department and the lawyers. And it might even be a company like a PwC that's outsourced, right? And then you might also have another internal department that does background checks, right? And sometimes things can fall between the cracks between all those different moving parts. And you have to be the one who kind of stays on top of like making sure the communication is there, making sure things are happening, because sometimes people will be like, okay, this is my department, this is what I'm focused on, I'm doing this. And, sometimes things fall in between and you have to kind of be the one to dig it out and kind of get
That's
it. That's
one of the reasons why on Pocmi we have the to-do lists and the sharing of files within the platform, and all the stakeholders are able to input information and know when there's something missing, right? Because that part is so important.
Yeah.
Pierpaolo?
I was thinking of something similar, like, keeping track of deadlines, all the requirements, getting to know all the legal implications. It's not fun, honestly, but it's something that it's a big part of the job. And again, it's only you that can really, connect the pieces there. You're going to find some different people who can help along the way, but it's really up to you to have all everything clear and, everything under control. Because as Mark was saying, any deal, any opportunity can really fall through for like silly things or like paperwork not submitted on time or there's just anything from visas to work permits to your house contract, whatever, like anything, honestly. So it's hard to mention all the different points there, but having maybe like speaking to someone who's done that before, that's also very helpful. Me personally, I always say, like, if you have a chance to go to this place or go to this new country or new city a little bit earlier, that would be ideal. So you can just become more familiar with the whole the market, the culture, the housing market as well, and spend some time before you make any choice, honestly. Like the last thing that I would do like now, or I would suggest anyone to do, would be like to buy something or book something or rent something or sign something like remotely from like far away without having even seen or told to someone in person. Like, and this is not just about the actual job. I'm talking about anything else. It can be really scary at sometimes. There's like a lot of surprises, good and bad. So the more you can be present, the more you can understand where you're going and the kind of environment you are joining, the better. So and it's also better if you can just familiarize with a new city or with a new country for some time before just jumping right away in a new job. Like for me, that wasn't the case when I moved to the US for the second time. Like because after my master degree, I went back to Italy for like 3 years, and then I moved to New York in 2015. So I remember that time it was very, we were like very strict and with timings, and I had to move there on a Saturday night, and Monday morning I started on a new job.
Wow.
So especially when you start like what used to be like a 9 to 5 office job, you don't have time to do anything else. You don't have time to look for a place. You don't have time to honestly, like make friends. Since day one, you don't have time to call the Wi-Fi company. So it's give yourself some time to be prepared for anything else besides your job. So your mind can be fresh and more clear. You don't have to waste some important mental energy on anything else while you're starting on such a new job adventure. Yeah.
And even initiating the process, you shouldn't be afraid to ask the employers for an in-person interview. So at the very least, you would have gone there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And seen the environment.
Yeah. I have a story about that. I did that.
Let's hear it.
So that's one thing. I really wanted my first job in New York at Reuters, and I knew that some other people were applying through the same international program, which was under like a J1 visa. Again, another letter in the visa,
the visa line, the US visa line.
Exactly. So J1 was like a 1-year temporary visa obtained through like a third-party sponsor. Anyway, let's forget about that. So, but there were other people applying for the same position. I actually told my former boss at Coca-Cola, who's also like a very close friend of mine, and I told him that I was going for that job even before I got it. I was going for that opportunity, and he came with me. We came to New York for like a long weekend.
Your boss came with you for an interview for the next job? Yeah. Oh, that's madness.
Melissa, you know this person, Emanuele, so you met him as well. So he was very kind. He came with me, we had a long weekend in New York, and I had my last job interview with Reuters, who became my future manager in person at a restaurant on his lunch break. I think honestly that also made a difference. I told him about this story. I was very impressed. Like I made it all the way there just to have the final interview in person. So do what you can to distinguish yourself from the competition, to really show that you want something, and it doesn't need to be to fly all the way from across the ocean to get it done, but those are like small details, not so small details that can make a difference sometimes.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And I mean, all of what you guys have said goes back to just raising the bar on yourself, making sure that you stand out in the crowd, because hiring someone from across waters, international borders, whether it's water or no water, is a costly expense for the company, and they need to make sure that who they're hiring is worth the hire, because you not working out is not a good idea for anyone involved in the process. Right. So any last tips for aspiring expats?
So first, let me just kind of piggyback on what Pierpaolo was saying. Definitely 100% give yourself time to settle, and try and, push back a little bit if they're giving you a date to start and you think you need a little bit more time. See if you can kind of negotiate that, because it really is very important, especially if you're moving to a big city. Like, finding an apartment is just a draining process, right? You're going to have to look at a ton of places. Like, finding a place in Toronto is like running a gauntlet. And even if you start ahead of time and do a bunch of research ahead of time, it's still ideal if you can come here and spend some time and actually see the places, and it makes a huge difference. So I'd say that's number one. Number two, keep in mind that it's entirely possible that timelines are going to shift, right? So you should try and kind of build in some flexibility to your plans where possible, because like things happen. The pandemic is a perfect example. Visa issuing slowed down, and this and that. They're all kind of like moving parts involved in this whole process. So like one thing slowing down can affect the next. And my final bit would be to, if you can, especially if you're moving to a city like Toronto, try and move in the summer. Like, try or put it this way: factor in the weather wherever you're moving. Right, it's a real thing, right? The number of hours of sunlight you get, how different it is from where you're coming from. It affects things like, do you have the clothes that you need? Like, do you have? It's not just clothes; it's all these other little things, right? So I moved here in the summer. It was already pretty warm, so I have time to slowly transition to like slowly buy the things that I need to get, and because of that, like I can talk to people and be like, okay, what should I get for this? Somebody made a recommendation, rather than me just getting here, running out into a shop and just buying the first thing that I see on the rack, you know what I mean? Like, and just kind of like feeling stressed out by that process. I've been able to slowly start kind of, preparing for the upcoming winter without it feeling like, I just kind of moved from one place one day and I'm in a completely different, like, frozen Arctic the next. So that would be my other recommendation. If it's possible, it's not always going to be possible. Like I said, timeline shift, but factor that in and try and see if you can angle for that too.
Pierpaolo?
And for me, I would say a couple of things as well. Just building on what we were saying before, trying to be ready for when the opportunity comes, and try not to waste it. But also don't stress too much about it, because at some point you're gonna understand when the right train comes. So, and also I would say, like, talent, in general, I think it's universal. So I don't think that's a concern for hiring managers, trying to bring people, from anywhere else. I think that should be your plus. That should be your strength. I would rather focus on, mitigate all the other possible concerns. So, you adapting to like a new culture, new language, or just, I would say show through your experiences or your examples or whatever you say that you are adaptable. You can learn fast. You can adapt quick. Don't stress too much about what you have done in the past, but show that you have the mindset to do whatever they want in the future, or whatever your tasks are going to be. And most importantly, like, remember, like during like an interview or like like any business meeting with your possible future boss, future hiring manager, like, don't make it about yourself. Honestly, we always talk about storytelling, and we're obsessed by that, but don't make it about your own story. to be completely fair with you, that this is not charity, like it's business. So they really care about what you can bring to their company. So don't tell your story, but tell what you can do for them. Which kind of value you can bring to their company. Which kind of impact you can have. What is the advantage of having someone coming from far away and joining their team? Are you providing diversity? Are you providing like a fresh perspective? Do you have like some totally different skills that they wouldn't find in that specific job area? So try to be very concrete and like, provide some tangible examples of the value you can bring, and don't make it about yourself as a personal story. Yeah, so that's one thing. And lastly, I would say don't worry if sometimes you feel like down or like discouraged. They're gonna be some really bad times at some point. I think that's for all of us. Nothing is ever easy. I think in ideal world, it should be easier for people to move internationally to just play on this ideally to play on the same level. But we know it's not, and we know, and that's the reason why Pocmi exists, right? So don't stress too much. I think I would say, if you feel down, like remember why you started that journey, why you started to push into that direction, and why you really want to be there, and think about who you want to become in the future, like down the line. So all the little intermediary steps are you have to be prepared to change and to shift your trajectory and change course like many times. You will never get from A to B in a straight line. And that's like a cliche, but it is true. Honestly, it's
hopefully we can help them to get in at least a straighter line than than the mumbo jumbo that we have been going through. I forgot to mention before that I also went through the process of moving across borders for work, and it's pretty much similar. I didn't have all the tools that I needed. At the time, I'm aging myself, but I had to use yahoo.com. There was no monster.com or LinkedIn to kind of search for a job abroad. So, it can, the summary is that it can be done. It will be difficult. Hopefully Pocmi can help to make it less difficult for you. But you always have to put your all into it. If it's something that you want to do, you can't just do a mediocre resume and put it on the site and expect that is going to be the thing that is going to get you to where you want to be in another country. I mean, you really have to be top notch in whatever way you can. So if you can't go somewhere to do anything else, start, as we mentioned before, on another remote site and do some work. I mean, you don't even have to do remote work. You can do blog posts, as Mark said initially, right? You have the knowledge. In some cases, you already have the knowledge. Be confident in yourself that you have the knowledge. If you have identified a problem, which Mark did, you figure out what the solution is for the industry, write a paper about it, and put yourself at the top, right? That is making sure that you put yourself out there. And of course, making sure that you have your own key goals, keeping track of them so you're not all over the place, making a plan. All of those things are important to getting to where you want to be across international borders. So preparation, knowing what your goals are, sticking to your goals, knowing what your knowledge is and how your knowledge can be useful to other people. Start there, and then move into applying for all the jobs. Did I leave anything out, guys?
No, it sounds good.
Well, thank you so much for taking some of your Monday afternoon to talk with us and give some of these candidates hope and advice. I am sure they are very grateful to hear from you, as am I. I wish you all the best. Mark, especially in this new role. Pierpaolo is a little bit more seasoned in his role right now.
I'm 34 now, so I'm pretty old myself.
The child.
Talking about 34 like that's old.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Thanks
Will.
everyone for tuning in. See you on Wednesday. Do not forget to interact and keep up with the platform all week. So even though we don't have any fireside chats tomorrow, make sure that you're on the site, checking to see if employers have reached out to you and reaching back out to them. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.